Dry run.
All
right. Okay. I think we are live now. Hold on. We're going to try this again. Sorry, everyone, if you just joined us. I totally screwed up and was talking to myself for 5 minutes. So let's start again. Hi, everybody. Welcome again. Hopefully I'm a little smoother this time around. Sorry for the late start. I was talking to myself for a little bit. So let's go ahead and introduce our panel. So today we're talking about how you can work towards allyship, actions you can take to make sure that your travel agency or your company within the travel industry is helping work towards change and equality in our industry. So first of all, we have Dr. Redgina Hill from Redgina Hill Consulting. Give a wave, Redgina. She's going to be our moderator for today. Next up, we have Colleen Sullivan, the founder of Anthology Travel. Welcome, Kathleen. Then we have Stephanie McDowell, and I see Violet has made an appearance, the Great Dane. So Stephanie and Violet's very knowledgeable about the subject. So Stephanie is the Senior Director of Professional Development and Trade Programs over at CLIA. And then we have Colleen Phelan, the Director of Marketing Services and Web Customer Experiences at Delta Vacations. And last but not least, we have PJ Douglas, from Lux Worldwide Travel, who joined us last webinar and is back again by popular demand. So welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. A few quick housekeeping things before we get started. So this is a 3-part series, and this is the last one. I would really encourage you, because we want to have a comprehensive view of how racism plays into the travel industry and what we can do about it. So I would encourage you, if you missed the first 2 webinars, to go to youtube.com/hostagencyreviews and watch the listen webinar as well as the learn webinar. You are having trouble commenting on YouTube. Here's what you do. You click the little circle in the upper right-hand corner, your channel, and then you're going to create a channel, and you should be able to ask questions and comments. So one quick thing before we get started, we do have an income survey that's going on right now. The survey closes August 23rd, and the results are out in late September. So go ahead and go to hostagencyreviews.com/income survey. If you're not familiar with the income survey, I'm going to show you where you can find some old results. So, all right, if you go to blog up on the top and then go to travel agent surveys in the drop down, you'll be able to see a lot of the different fee reports and income surveys. They're great resources for the industry, but why it's so important this year is, first of all, this is our last snapshot of travel agent income pre-COVID, and so it's incredibly important for benchmarking our recovery to get as much data as we can from the travel agency distribution channel. And it's not just for hosted agents, it's for independently accredited agencies, it's for employees. We're looking to do reports on all different sectors. So let's see. We also have a behind the scenes team. We have April, Bridget, and Mary from HAR who will be in the comments. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself in there. So we're tossing it up and asking some tough questions this time. Go ahead and let us know in the comments where you wish you were tuning in from. And if you prefer chocolate chip cookies or snickerdoodles, I'm perfectly chocolate chip cookie girl, but snickerdoodles are also delicious. So let me, hold on just a second. I'm going to turn this off, and then I'm going to let PJ back in, and then we can get started. So go ahead, Redgina, take it away from here.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I want to say, as this is our last webinar together, thank you so much for inviting me to be able to moderate these discussions. I came in with little knowledge, and I feel like I'm leaving with so much knowledge and connection. So thank you so much. Thank you to Mary and the entire staff that has helped to put these webinars together. It is such an honor and a privilege to talk about ACT. We are in an important state within our country and in our history where everyone is trying to figure out how they can be better citizens and what they can do to be great allies for the Black and Brown community, LGBTQ plus community. And so I'm so excited that we have a knowledgeable panel with us to talk about some of these things. So we'll just dive right on in. And the first question is for Kathleen, Colleen, and Steph. And the question is, what does allyship mean to you? And what are ways white and non-Black travel professionals can work towards allyship?
Kathleen, do you want to start it out?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So to me, allyship means a combination of two things that may seem like they're difficult to balance. One, amplifying voices and the things that our Black colleagues are asking for and have been asking for. And then two, consistently speaking up. So it's finding that balance between putting yourself out there, but not with your own agenda, by putting forth the agenda of our Black and Brown colleagues, and using the power that your voice has as a white voice to get that message out there.
Yes, that's so important. What about you, Colleen?
Yeah, I think you've said it very well, Kathleen, but I think for me, one of the things to do is to be sensitive to the emotional aspect of this as well. And I think, finding ways to ask the questions, but really listen and not be afraid to say something wrong. And so I think being afraid keeps us from checking in or even, putting out any, sentiments back. And so I think being fearful is not going to move the needle forward. So I think we have to be open to, saying, hey, I'm not sure, is this the right way to go about this? And being open with your Black and Brown colleagues and your customers too. And I think that authenticity will ring true, but it has to be taken one step further into action. And I think that's the one thing we're talking about today is how do we put it into action?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's more than just saying,
right,
I'm an ally. It's the actions.
Absolutely.
You're putting behind those words. What about you, Stephanie? What do you have to add to that?
Well, I think the first thing I want to acknowledge is I am not a race expert. And I know that a lot of people are watching are like me. I don't have a background in racial studies, but I do want to do my part to make things more equitable within the industry. So for me, like as a business owner with a platform, allyship in like the business sense means using HAR as a vehicle to push for change and support initiatives that aim to level the playing field. And so that's kind of a big thing for me.
Thank you all for that. So this next question is for PJ and Colleen. There can be a disconnect when suppliers or destinations say that they are welcoming to everyone. So what advice would you give to destinations and to those companies that want to be welcoming to all but tend to fall short? And then how can they put meat behind those words?
Oh, we're not able to hear you, PJ. No.
Oh.
Do you want to try logging back in and, okay. Regina, do you want to move on to the next question and then we'll come back to PJ?
Or Colleen can.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Answer.
Yeah, I think this is a good question. And for me specifically, as you heard with my title, my team is the creative agency within Delta Vacations. So we're a tour operator supplier of the leisure side of Delta Airlines. So different than, many of you who are listening and many of the other experts on the panel, we are in a supplier mindset in that we push marketing out into the world. And so I think it is in our responsibility, therefore, to represent the world as it actually is, not just as we think or historically it's been treated. And I shared this the other day when we talked with the panel, but, my company historically was from the Midwest, from Minnesota, a small mom and pop, very conservative, white owned, and probably almost exclusively white employees. So culturally, over the 50 years of the business, we've evolved a lot. And I think that's just the truth. And as we moved our headquarters down to Atlanta, the demographics and the landscape and our customer base changed and evolved in the same way that the United States and the world is evolving. So I, as a leader of a team that's developing marketing materials, so websites and videos and print ads and all of that, that's going out into the marketplace to push travel, it was important that we took a look at ourselves and were honest and said, look, we're not accurately representing the travelers. And so we, made a lot of efforts towards representing not only racial diversity, but certainly genders and traveler types. So, solo travelers is a really burgeoning side of business, but also the inclusive side of LGBTQ+, and making sure that everyone could find themselves in our marketing. And I think that's important. So as an industry at large, I think we have a responsibility to both push it and pull it. So I would say to all of the travel advisors out there, ask for it. If you're not seeing your suppliers providing you resources that are brochures or, flyers or other documents that reflect your niche or your broad audience at large, make sure you're asking for that, because they may not even realize how white their materials appear until someone points it out. Now, we should all be more self-reflective and aware than that, but I think it's an evolving conversation. So, I just have been really respectful of the evolution of our team and the evolution of our company. Our leadership has changed, and our, my team is very diverse and inclusive, and it's a beautiful, family. And that's really comfortable place for us to have these good conversations and be honest with ourselves and say, look, our hero images, our dominant images are always a white couple. And there's certainly restraints to that. But I think there's another topic we're going to talk about later in this. But, that's my perspective coming at it from a very, narrow piece of this puzzle. I'm certainly not an expert, but I do know marketing. And I think marketing has a responsibility to evolve.
Colleen, I love how you said that there's a responsibility to push and to pull those efforts. I think that's very important for people to realize in their industries, especially in 2020, when there are lack of representation within marketing materials. And so, PJ, are you back with us?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Oh, man, we still can't hear you.
No, I can hear her.
You can hear her?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay,
I can't hear her, but so PJ, I'm gonna ask you a question, and when I see your mouth stop,
Okay.
to the next question, okay? So PJ, what advice would you give to companies who are trying to be more welcoming to all?
Well, oftentimes when you see us depicted or people of color depicted, they are the help. So I would definitely love to see more representation in leadership roles so that you can be welcomed by the people that are of that culture. As well, I feel like affinity groups are not a bad thing. So when it comes to connecting and being able to tell people, these are the different types of people that are in our lands, and we would love for you to connect with them, whether it's cultural, whether it's things that they like to do, whether it's, are you part of a fraternity or a sorority or anything like that. Just being able to know where those resources are and having it represent the population so people can find it. And the CVBs and the destination tourist boards, those are the perfect websites to put that material on.
That's great. And I did get confirmation the people watching can actually hear you too, PJ. It's just you, Redgina.
Great. And I have no doubt that whatever PJ said was amazing, because she was on the last panel dropping a lot of gems. So I have no doubt that what she said was amazing. So this next question is for Stephanie and PJ. There's a noticeably lack of diversity in C-suite executives in the travel company, and especially just any company industries across the country. For those companies tuning in, what concrete steps can they take to bring more people of color, especially in those top positions? And more specifically, I would dare to say right now in this climate, not just in chief diversity officer roles, but in other capacities.
Sure. So I think probably the primary thing is intentional action toward this purpose, because we know and have seen systemic and structural racism will not allow for notable diversity in leadership to happen organically, right? So first, I would recommend, research the benefits of having a diverse C-suite or senior leadership team. Don't just do it because it's right or for the optics. You'll see that this is one of the best business decisions that can be made. And there are a number of reasons why. There's expanded creativity and problem solving because of the varied perspectives and experiences offered by a diverse leadership team, which also then leads to better decision making, right? Benefits employee engagement and retention quite a lot, because welcoming work cultures people want that. They want to know that their unique perspective and their unique experience is valued and it's recognized. And in addition to that, companies that are reflective of their communities, and we've already mentioned this, Colleen, you talked about that regarding marketing, and that is only going to provide a positive impact with customers and vendors. So in addition to doing that first research, sorry, Violet wants to be a part of this. I would say also seek out recruitment agencies that specialize in diverse executives. Companies such as Minority Executive Search and Diversity Recruiters, this is what they specialize in. So again, this has to be an intentional action. And then another thing that can be done is to develop internal pipeline programs by identifying phenomenal staff folks that are diverse, that are already on board, coaching them, investing in their professional development, and creating a very clear path of growth within your organization. All of those could be steps that can be taken toward growing diversity in C-suite and senior leadership roles.
That's so important, Stephanie. When I consult with a lot of companies, especially at the C-suite level, I often hear them say, we can't find people of color. And I'm like, well, have you been intentional? Have you looked? We are out there and we are qualified to be in those positions. So I think that's very important. You have to be intentional. And then the pipeline is so important. Who is already within your organization that can rise to the top, that could use some training or that extra push to be able to hold those positions? PJ, what would you like to add to that?
I definitely would love to see people making diversity mentoring a central practice in your organization and really creating a climate for mentorship among senior executives, touching base with minorities that are in their organization, because they are about relationship advancement. And oftentimes as people look for people to hire, they want someone that they played golf with, played tennis with, or know. So if you are relating with people through the climate of mentorship, I feel like that is a great way to build and foster relationships. I'd also love to see more companies becoming leading sponsors and participants in hospitality executive leadership programs. Not just saying I recruit or I happen to go to the college fair at, but be a leading sponsor, be accountable, be able to show the metrics of how many people you are pulling from the HBCU hospitality schools, as well as the Cornells and the University of Houston's of the world. Because when you see those people and the matriculation statistically over time, is that those people that are coming out of these hospitality schools are just not getting people all in. It's just a table at the recruiting fair. I'd also love to see more spending, because I feel like when you spend in your communities and support Black-owned businesses, contracting firms, developers, operators, when you start to say, okay, we want to earmark some money that we are holding and that we're spending and really be able to show the metrics of that, I feel like it then fosters a relationship getting into the C-suite, and the decision makers then become to evolve and become to be sensitized. Like Colleen says, you don't realize how white your spending is until you have an accountable metric that you are doing more businesses with Black and brown businesses and Black and brown banks.
So I would like to encourage those who are in positions of power or influence on this call to take heed to what PJ and Stephanie have to say, because they were giving you great tools and steps that you can take to diversify your companies. This next question is for Kathleen and Steph. Right now in this climate, it seems to be a buzzword right now, anti-racism. And for those of you on the call that don't know what it means, I'm just going to give you the definition really quickly. Anti-racism is the active process of identifying and eliminating racism by changing systems, organizational structures, policies, and practices and attitudes so that power is redistributed and shared equitably. So my question to you two is, what actions have you taken to promote anti-racism within your travel business?
Go ahead, Kathleen, first.
Okay, sure. First I want to say, I think it starts at home.
So for me, I think part of it is my associations. Oftentimes, we do fraternize with our own. I've made it a major effort in my personal life and in my professional life to make sure that my agency is affiliated with multicultural organizations. For instance, I'm part of PTANA, the Professional Travel Agents of North America, and we really have a lot of conversations about anti-racism and being allies and making sure that we expose all of the members to all of the different cultures, whether it's through our regular meetings or our conversations. I also feel like being more accountable and having those conversations, you know, when we post statistics on our social media for Patana in particular, we talk about what's going on with COVID. What are the statistics? What's going on with race? And I think more people need to just have that conversation, because people might say something out of pocket and you have to pull that person aside and kind of educate them, being open to that. So I think through education and also through organizations, you too can make sure that you connect.
Great. Thank you, PJ. Kathleen, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love everything PJ said. I think all of that is so on point. For me personally, it started with just making sure I was kind of auditing my own thoughts and beliefs, and kind of checking in on whether I still had some growth to do and more, you know, learning to do. I've actually just hired an anti-racism coach. We start working on Friday, and that's both so that I can make sure that I'm where I need to be personally, and also that my business is where it needs to be, and also, you know, to look at different ways that I, even just as an individual travel advisor, can have a broader impact on the industry, whether just in the advisor lane or in dealing with my supplier relationships or the consortia that I have. And then one other thing that I did was just start a Facebook called the Travel Industry Anti-Racism Initiative, so that different people from different segments of the industry, from media, technology, suppliers, advisors, would have one place to come to talk about issues that we're all talking about, but maybe in separate silos, you know, so we can all be working towards the same goals.
That's perfect. For me, like the webinar series is one of the big things. So the HAR team, we sat down and brainstormed, and we came up with the webinar series again as a way to use our platform. And like we're committed to collecting a more diverse set of voices for articles and other content like our podcasts. One of the things, I mean, I think it's definitely an ongoing conversation, and it's not something we haven't like reached our peak or anything along those lines. It's something that will continue on in the future. But one of the big projects we're working on is creating a fellowship, a diversity in travel fellowship. We've partnered with Blacks in Travel and Tourism, and the goal is to help Black and African American advisors as they start their agency, to help them connect to resources, have mentorship, like PJ was talking about it in the executive sense. But I think also for people that are looking to come into the industry, having mentorship as they're starting their agency, especially with home-based agencies, it can be very alienating. So that's our goal behind that. And we're hoping to launch it the end of this year, early next year. We've had lots of wonderful partners within the industry that are interested in getting involved. So if there is anyone interested and would like to know more about the fellowship and how they can help, we are looking for volunteers to help us with mentorship, and we're looking for suppliers, host agencies, consortia, tech companies, anyone within the travel industry that has something that's useful for an advisor. We are looking for people to help us with in-kind donations or other things like that. So you can email me at Stephanie@hostagencyreviews.com if you'd like to learn more info on that.
So while we're on the topic of action, and this question is for all of you, what are the actions you're taking to ensure that the work of anti-racism is enduring rather than reactionary? Anyone?
I'm happy to speak up on this. So let's be frank. Much of the shift taking place right now in companies is reaction to recent events. Though systemic racism is and has always been a harsh and horrible reality, that doesn't mean that it's always been at the forefront of the minds of those who are not obviously affected on a day-to-day basis. That doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that people are putting things in place right now. But like all of us on this panel, we are charged, if you will, with ensuring that the reaction becomes a pillar within each of our organizations that we just use and stand on, if you will, moving forward. So at CLIA, we've developed a DEI annual plan focused on anti-racism, first among all DEI matters. That includes identifying our shared values globally, internal education, and external communication and programs. So through these efforts, though initially likely reactionary, we have the opportunity to basically pick this up and run with it and just not stop.
For me, like continually, like I think everybody learns in different ways and things speak to them louder. For me, continually educating myself on the challenges that the Black community faces is very effective for me. So one of my favorite ways of pursuing continuing education is through audiobooks and conversations with friends and family. So I have multiple audiobooks that I will continue to listen to that discuss the complexities of racism. As a person in the travel community, I will continue to be an outspoken supporter of equality and equity within the industry and pushing for that. So those are kind of the ways that I'm hoping to make sure this is enduring or will make it enduring. Kathleen, do you want to go up next?
Yeah. I
Sure.
would definitely like to comment as well. I didn't know, Kathleen, did I step on you? Sorry, I've got a delay. Definitely, I feel like one of the reasons I'm personally committed to the cause is the fact that I want people to hire African Americans or do business with people of color, not because it makes business sense, but because it's also the right thing to do. I feel like, having an organization that promotes and wants to recognize and value diversity and inclusion, not because it's just the flavor of the week, but because it's something that they commit to. So for instance, one of the things I'm personally doing with myself is that I work closely with a group called NABHOOD, which is the National Association of Black Hotel Owners. And we're really working to promote some of the options that we want to implement, a nice roadmap to promoting African Americans in the hospitality, hotel, and travel industry. So I think, you have to be specific about your support and you have to really do the right thing. And that's something that our nation has continued to do in baby steps. And we want to keep that conversation going, not just because it's the cool thing to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen?
I think when we're talking about enduring change, I think we're really talking about looking at systems and how we can make change throughout a system rather than, kind of short term or the kind of change that just sort of papers over a problem actually affect the root cause. So I'm working with a group called Blacks in Travel and Tourism, and I think we're going to put the link up in the show notes for that. If there's anybody who's interested in getting more actively involved in terms of contributing your time and your thought leadership, they're a really great organization, and they're working right now on pulling together some specific task forces for different parts of the industry. And the goal of those is to develop some really specific policy objectives that we can then turn into action. So I think they're a really cool organization, and I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
I have to just second that that's a great organization, and that Stephanie Jones, who is on our second panel, is the founder of that. So,
Colleen, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just think, everyone said such great things. I don't know that from my perspective, I have a lot more to say, except for I think that we just need to keep it going, and it can't be the flavor of the week. And that, I think, comes from my perspective operationally into process too. So it's not just about systems. It's not just about mindset. It's about your everyday actions. And so, as I said, imagery is something that my team is very much in control of. So how does Delta Vacations look to the industry is within our control. And so actions that we're taking are not temporary. We're not temporarily featuring, an African-American couple on our ad. We are permanently featuring the reflective population of those that travel. So I think it's just a total shift in, this isn't a checkbox that we're going to do to make somebody at the top feel good. We've just launched, and reactionarily just launched, a DE&I group, but we have had swirlings around it. Delta has had a business resource group for a while, but we're a subsidiary, and it was time for us to build our own. So Delta Vacations now has 122 people out of 500 and something that are voluntarily saying, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of the permanent change. So I think this can't be something that this team meets really rapidly for a few weeks and then it dissolves. I think it has to be an ongoing piece of the way we talk and the way we go to business. So the piece of the pie that my team can control, we're absolutely on board with this. And I think it's just a matter of how we support the other groups. So for example, programmatically and like product, how does the product team go to the hotels and to the destinations and ensure that the product that we're selling to our customers is an experience that is welcoming and inclusive and appropriate when they arrive. So if there are any resistance to, Black travelers or the gay community traveling, we will fight that actively and ensure that that product is no longer available, because that's not something that we want to stand for. So I think there's really interesting ways that this comes about that are far beyond my reach, but we're proud to stand there and say, look, we're not going to have that. That's not the customer experience we're seeking. So I just think that it's an enduring effort, but it will take effort. It's not just something that we're going to address for these couple of weeks while it's still a trending hashtag.
Mm-hmm. I think some of the things that you alluded to is very important, and when we think about the process of being an ally and then moving from an ally to being a co-conspirator, that's where the risk comes into play, where you are willing to risk your reputation, your paycheck, whatever that risk may be, to be a co-conspirator to make sure that others are receiving equitable treatment. So I really like what you all had to say, especially you, PJ, even though I couldn't hear you.
So weird.
I don't know why I'm the only one that can't hear her. It's so weird. But this next question is for Kathleen and PJ. How can professionals get involved with the initiatives you've already set forth?
So I think we're going to drop the links in, but the Blacks in Travel and Tourism is actively soliciting more people to get involved with the task forces effort, just in terms of doing research, like going out and talking to people in the industry, like compiling information. So I think we're going to drop that link, and if people are interested, definitely please fill out the form that they have. And then I just made the Facebook group that I put together visible. Again, it was hidden. There isn't a lot going on there right now because we're kind of taking our time to make sure that we're doing things the right way. We don't want to rush into anything. But again, if you're interested in getting more information, feel free to pop in and join that. And we'll be distributing more information throughout that as it starts to kind of pick up a little bit.
All right. I think that's for me because I'm hearing Kathleen on the delay. Sorry. Well, I think for me, I think I would love to see, as a seller of travel, first of all, we have a responsibility to push cultural sites and heritage sites in the destinations. We also need to encourage our travelers not only to do a people-to-people program where they go and maybe go to people's homes, et cetera, in their destination, but also to volunteer. I think if you take your family on a vacation or your group, why can't you put some effort into spending part of that itinerary volunteering, getting to know, getting to help people who might need anything from clean water to, children that you might want to say, okay, pack up your things and let's donate school supplies at a local school. I think that part of the volunteer experience only enriches our travelers, but I think it's also something that should be showcased by the destinations in the cities. I would love to see them putting more of those opportunities on their websites, on their supplier pages, for people to opt in with ease, to feel comfortable about being transported to and from those places. And I also feel like knowledge, it's all about getting knowledge is power, which is a great opportunity we've had here to learn. I would also encourage people to support another organization. We have a multicultural tourism heritage summit that we put together each year, which is a great opportunity to not only meet the international destinations that are pushing their cultural heritage, but the local cities as well. CVBs like New Orleans, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Miami that participate annually. So you can learn more and talk to these representatives about where you should be sending your travelers when you go to those sites. So definitely we'll drop that link below as well. Make sure that you're getting educated, and don't just send your folks to go sit by the beach for 6 days and 5 nights, and then they get on the plane and they know nothing about where they've been, and they have not positively affected change with their dollars.
Thank you for that, PJ. So one of the recurring themes that we've heard over the past 2 webinars is about the lack of representation in supplier marketing materials. Colleen, Delta Vacations is making inroads on this. What's in the pipeline and what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, thanks for asking. As I've hinted at, I think that is our responsibility to create marketing that reflects the population that travel. And so the pipeline for us specifically includes finally putting into practice what we've been hearing. So we have our annual Delta Vacations University, where we have travel advisors come and attend educational sessions. And one of the things that I and I always teach a class on what we call the Marketing Hub, which is our branded portal within our booking engine for where our travel advisors can customize, print, and download marketing materials that they can then use for their own business. And one of the things we kept hearing was, that's great, you have a lot of really great information, but you don't have anything that reflects the diversity of my audience, my clients. And so we actively went after it in 2019 and spent hours and hours adding hundreds of images to the gallery that reflect every ethnicity and diversity that you could, racial diversity, age diversity, that was a big one too, gender and LGBTQ plus imagery, because it was important that if a travel advisor has a gay family, or a gay couple that wants to go on vacation, they want the imagery in the flyers that they're speaking to reflect what that family and what that vacation would look like. If they have a Black family that's going to go on a beach vacation, they don't want to show a white family in a city. So just making sure that we align to the needs. So not only have we increased the number of images, but we are now working on, and hopefully going to push out very soon, the ability for people to do a drop down. So they can drop down in a menu and select what the image type should be in terms of what the family, or, is it a solo traveler? Is it a couple? And what then the racial diversity that they want to represent, and then the destination, so that you can ultimately get to a place where you have a matrix. You can choose, I want, a Black couple in Mexico, that would be all 3 facets of that. And then that image that they're using in customizing with their branded logo makes sense for them. So I will say the challenges was the other piece, Redgina, that you mentioned. And it's not that there aren't any. So forget just resources in general. We're all living leaner and tighter than ever before right now, but that's always been true. Marketing is always the first place people look and go, we can trim dollars there, because it's really hard to prove that ROI. But even more difficult is when the vendors that we partner with aren't delivering what we need. So Getty Images, we're all familiar with the largest image, warehouse in the world for stock footage and imagery. I did a search this morning because I was curious. I knew this was my gut instinct, but I wanted to validate it. I typed in family vacation, and 166,000 images come up right away for the creative license, which is non-newspaper. It's creative, what we do in advertising. If I switch on just the filters to choose only non-white ethnicities, that option from 166K goes down to 35,000 images. So then I'm choosing from there. And even as I scrolled, some of them were white as I am. So that wasn't even an accurate facet. So Getty is not doing a very good job of tagging their images appropriately. And then if you go just black only, you just click down to that, it's 8,000 images. So we're talking about less than 5% of the total. And we're just talking about family vacation. So if I wanted to get more specific than that and even narrow down to Hawaii, the joke, my senior manager, a gorgeous black woman, says to me, apparently blacks don't go to Hawaii because I can't find a single image of black people in Hawaii. And I know that's not true. You all know that's not true. So what is our supplier relationship? We're pushing them, and we're small potatoes compared to Getty, but we have an annual subscription and we use their services every day and have, increased our needs. So we keep saying to them, you've got to do better. You've got to get more representation in your images. And yeah, it might be the little engine that could here, but we're going to try. But what we can do is then commission our own teams to get out there. So I'm sure you're all thinking, well, just go on the beach and take some pictures. I've got a beautiful family in mind. It's just not that easy with everything from the expense of the travel and even where we can defer some of that. You're talking about release forms and copyrights and licenses and things that just, you never know. Like, you hate to use an image that ultimately or pay for an image that you ultimately can't use later. It's something that we're trying to do. So we're absolutely taking an effort at making more original photography happen and sending our team members into market. One of the videos we just recently produced had one of our videographers' family in it because it was just an easier way to get exactly what we needed. But that's not always possible. So just know that we're conscious of it. But you have to make change by asking for change. So I think we have to continue to push back on our image suppliers and say, look, this is not a representative, source. Now, I know I've spoken a lot about just this, as it relates to marketing, but I think it also comes down to the words we're using and the products we're promoting and the different events that we're attending and sponsoring. So social media, our social media causes have changed over the past few years. We always have had a strong presence in Pride, but now we're speaking up more during Juneteenth and having a branded representation there and just making sure that we have a voice with action behind it. So, marketing can be a voice or an amplifier for change, but I think we also have to be a part of it.
So good. Stephanie, the same question for you. What role does CLIA see itself playing when it comes to pushing suppliers to diversify their marketing materials?
Sure. So part of CLIA's DEI efforts that I mentioned previously is to reach out to our members, partners, vendors to first find out what their DEI efforts and initiatives are that they presently have in place, and just beginning that dialogue, sharing best practices and any other information that will be beneficial in serving the entire cruise and travel community. However, regarding best practices sharing, for anyone who's joining this webinar and has been a member of CLIA for longer than 5 years, they may have noticed a substantial difference in our marketing materials because our North American Travel Trade Membership Marketing Team has done an absolutely phenomenal job in diversifying what our marketing materials look like. They are far more reflective of our membership community and, an extension of their client base. And, just very proud that is an option. So I know that I initially spoke about the DEI efforts that we're moving as part of kind of a reactionary kickoff, but there has been excellent work done at CLIA in just changing our image and how we show up within the travel community in our marketing materials. In addition to that, our training materials and the trainers, is far more diverse now at CLIA than it ever has been before, and trust that we've received a lot of positive feedback as a result. So sharing this with our partners and members along with some data that we intend to collect. And Stephanie, I did not know about those amazing reports that you guys are doing, so I am definitely going to take advantage of taking a look at those. But that just may be the encouragement that they need to begin to affect change.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. So those of you who are watching and in the chat, I'm going to allow you this moment to submit your questions while we ask this final question to our panelists, so that we can hear what are some of the things that is going on in your sphere of influence that you would like their advice on. So this question is for all of you. One of the common refrains from people within the travel community is that they want to be allies and they want to be part of a change but aren't sure how to do it. Can each of you give 1 to 2 action steps people can take to make travel more inclusive when this webinar ends?
PJ, do you want to start?
I'll use one example is social media. You know, a lot of times when we talk about creating bias, I think we all need to think outside of the box a little bit as well. So if, as me, I'm an African American agent, advisor, so on my social media and when I'm promoting, all my flyers and images don't have to be African American, because I want to be more inclusive. I want to attract other clients and customers. Likewise, I would love for people who are allies to, if you're Caucasian, I feel like your marketing should be more diverse as well. I think one, it'll be reflected in your ROI because you'll have more people from all walks of life who will start to patronize your business and it won't be so homogenous. And two, you'll be more conscious about how much you were not posting the other groups and other cultural experiences. So my first challenge would be to make it on social media because that's a reflection right now where we are of who you are and who your business is.
Thank you, PJ. Whatever she said, do it. Whatever she said, just do it.
She was talking something about like chickens going down to the store and
What about you, Kathleen? What are 1 or 2 action steps?
So 2 things. I mean, one, I think it's just know and acknowledge that your voice counts. Like, I'm a solo entrepreneur. I have been in business about 4 years, but I've made it my business to talk to my host agency, to talk to my consortia. Virtuoso Travel Week is coming up in about a week and a half, and I made sure to include in my bio that social justice and racial equality are really important to me, and those are issues I'm involved with in the industry. Just to kind of put people on notice that conversation may come up while we're having our meetings, or to kind of seed the thought at least that I may want to connect with them on outside of the conference. And then the other thing too that I think, even as like a very small business owner, that you can do is look at your own hires. Like, I don't have any specific employees, but I have a virtual assistant, I have a lawyer, I have an accountant, I have a graphics person, a marketing team. And I've really tried to intentionally diversify that team of people. Just to make sure that I'm making sure that the voices around me are diverse and that I'm not just kind of stuck in like an echo chamber.
Thanks, Kathleen. How about you, Stephanie?
Assuming me?
Yes.
Stephanie? Okay.
it's tricky.
It is tricky. It's 2 of us here. Well, I mean, as far as like potentially favorite resources, books. I am a proud bibliophile. Steph, when you mentioned audiobooks, I just wanted to leap out of my seat because, there are so many amazing books out there written from multiple perspectives on the subjects we're talking about right now. So I would definitely encourage people to take advantage of that. In addition to that, I think one of the greatest resources, if you will, is networking and conversation. I mean, it's literally just that simple. Just being able to start having a conversation and a dialogue, gaining that different perspective from someone else. I have to admit, since we've been embarking upon certain exercises within CLIA regarding the DEI matters, I just have learned so much because my only perspective is that of a Black woman in America, right? So it's important for me to know and to hear from people from multiple genders, races, ethnicities, their perspective and how they learn and how they see, and just being able to have that dialogue, being accepting people as they are, as they present themselves, and learning from them, and not immediately, kind of shutting them down by the manner in which they speak, etc. Just kind of being very self-aware of your own bias. I mean, because quite frankly, we all have them in one way or another. But just kind of opening yourself and trying to put down your offensive layer just a little bit. But I believe that that kind of dialogue can grow understanding and grow thought processes between the individuals that are having them, that will then spawn more conversations and more actions as a result.
Stephanie, what's your favorite audiobook at the moment about these topics?
How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
What about you, Colleen? What's
well, yeah, no, I think it's a great question. It's one of those that I agreed with every suggestion. So I was sitting here thinking, what am I going to say that hasn't already been said? And I think the one that I failed to mention before was, I think it's important to celebrate how far you've come and to celebrate the little wins. So one thing that we do is whenever we get a nice social comment, because we, as I said, have been making a significant effort, and you will get both sides of the argument, especially on the LGBTQ imagery choices. So we've made a decision to not just have two men walking on the beach, but to use an image of them holding hands. So it's evident they're a couple, not brothers. And I think that's important because we're making a stand. But know that you're going to get the commentary from both sides, praising the decision and criticizing it. And so when we do see a lot of praise on the decision, we make sure to capture that and put it in a PowerPoint deck that gets shared with the company in our town halls. And for example, a really fabulous example was in January or February before COVID, we had a social post that had a Black family on the beach, and it had a mom and a dad and two small children. And a company, a local Atlanta small business, promoted it and reused the image, like reposted it, and then talked and even logoed it, and then put a comment below thanking us for being so diverse. She coaches and teaches swim lessons, and she said seeing Black travelers on the beach near the water is important because of the deaths, the percentage of deaths of Black children that die because they don't know how to swim, or even adults. And she just went on and on and on and praised it. And she said, I applaud you, Delta Vacations, for making this decision to feature this. And it wasn't even that deep of a conscious decision. It was a lovely photo of people that looked like our travelers. So we used it. But once she put that in our minds, we realized the impact we were making with our decisions was deeper than we even had realized. And we celebrated it. So we made sure that people had seen that comment, and our president had seen the comment, and she just loved it. And I think that's important, to give yourself a little credit for those wins, because people need that validation that these efforts are working and that they're worth it. So I think don't hesitate to not always be downtrodden that how far we still have to go, but to celebrate the small wins too.
That's good. Steph, what about you?
Well, I think one of the first things you can do is share this webinar for any of your colleagues that are wondering, well, what can I do if you bring up this conversation, since it has a lot of action points. But I mean, one of the things we've heard in the prior webinars, and I've gotten responses from the statement that Host Agency Reviews pushed out, is that at travel industry events, which are predominantly white as a general rule, oftentimes African-American travel advisors that are there can feel very alienated, and they'll be sitting alone at a table or will be ignored when they're asking questions. I had someone write in to say she's a brand new advisor, asked somebody next to her, a white woman, and the woman kind of brushed her off. But when a new white advisor came and sat on the other side, they just connected, shared phone numbers, and how hurtful that was. So I think one really simple thing you can do is step outside of your bubble at a travel industry event. And I mean, I think for anyone that's sitting alone, I always make an effort to go sit by them, because I know what it's like to be awkward and sitting by yourself, and nobody likes that. And so just to make an effort to be more open and to learn about more people at an event is a big one. Another thing that going with events, if you're attending an event and you see the speakers and the presenters that are there, and that if it's all homogenous and there's no diversity in there, whether it be gender or racial, to to reach out to the event organizers and say, I want to attend your event. I would love to see more of these speakers before I can sign on to register. Or if you're a speaker, to say the exact same thing. I'm looking at your panel of speakers and there's no diversity here. Love to speak. Please make sure that you add more speakers. And once those more diverse speakers are in line, then I would be happy to come on. But until that happens, I'm afraid not able to speak at your event. So those are some small things I think you can easily do.
So we have one question from the audience, and this will be the only one that we'll take for the sake of time. This question comes from Charles. He wants to know, what companies within the travel industry would you say represent the gold standard in allyship?
Maybe PJ and Kathleen, since you two are the ones booking suppliers. No gold standard.
They all have work to do.
I have two, and from the travel agent space. One thing that I really like about Sandals brand, Unique Vacations, and maybe it's because their origins are in Jamaica, where the company was founded, but I like the fact that their business development management side is diverse. They have people who are originally Jamaican. They have, every shade and facet and age across their sales force selling the destination and the experience. And I think that's also reflected in their marketing, their brochures, and I think it contributes to the experience. On the other supplier side, I want to give a shout out to is I like Vacation Express. I think Vacation Express, which is Canadian owned by Sunwing, headquartered in Atlanta, I think they do a good job as well with diversity in marketing, showcasing the destinations and the experiences. And I would love to see more people, that's two people with two different budgets there as well, in different ways that it can be done. And I would love to see more of that across the board, which is probably why it took us so long to find one in our brains.
Yeah, in the luxury, I'm really struggling to come up with someone that I would say fits like a gold standard. I think a lot of companies have a lot of work to do, and I think we're at a good point where they recognize that, and we have some momentum. So here's hoping we can push that forward into some action.
Well, thank you all for your time and for your expertise on this topic. I am going to turn it over to Steph for any last minute announcement.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for coming on, and thank you, Redgina, for moderating. Thank you everyone that's tuned in. We're really excited about the webinar series and I personally have learned something our pre-calls, I learned something on the webinars. I learned something. It's just been really exciting for me and very opening. And I hope the same is true for those of you that have tuned in. So again, I just want to give one last shout out about the income survey and how important it is. And I can't remember if I mentioned this in my first round when I was only talking to the panelists and not actually live, or if I mentioned it on the live. So I will say too, in the income survey, we do collect demographic data. So we collect gender information, racial information, ages, and that's really helpful because we cross-reference that with the data and we can look for income disparities. Again, it's for everyone, not just hosted advisors, it's for employees. So it can help us benchmark what the normal salary is of travel agent employees, how they're paid, and we can also look to see if there's any age or, again, racial disparity. So another important reason to please take the income survey. It closes August 23rd, and the results will be published on Host Agency Reviews, free for all, late September, early October. So again, hostagencyreviews.com/income survey. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll hopefully see you all soon. Bye.